Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The chairperson of this doctoral examinations committee, my esteemed examiners, my supervisor and the deputy director CPS, I take this opportunity to thank everybody for the opportunity offered to me to present and defend my work. And I pray to Allah to give me the required strength to succeed, inshallah. To go straight to the business, my study focused on instructional design qualities of e-learning courses as predictors of learner satisfaction and continuous use intention in the context of Ugandan higher learning institutions. Now, as an introduction, literature revealed that several higher learning institutions in Uganda, both private and public, have come to envision e-learning as critical to their long-term success, specifically for two reasons: help them achieve long-term development plans and foster 21st century learning for both distance education and lifelong learners. And this has been clearly reflected in their strategic plans, their ICT policies, as well as the courses being offered. Just to give some examples, Islamic University in Uganda in 2016 signed a memorandum of understanding with an Indian IT company to start online learning, and as a consequence, 2 online programs were accredited in 2018. Just another example, Chambogo University, a public university, has been able to install the prerequisite ICT infrastructure and train its staff in the skills of e-learning content development. Literature also revealed that there are over 15 higher learning institutions offering Cisco e-learning courses since 2002. And lastly, there are several higher learning institutions currently deploying the model-based learning management platforms to help them manage and deliver information to the learners. But what is the problem? It has been revealed that so far no feedback to stakeholders has been availed regarding the effectiveness of most of these e-learning initiatives, particularly with regard to student satisfaction. Yet literature has clearly documented that the success of an e-learning program largely depends on the application of sound instructional design principles. Hence, there is urgent need for stakeholders' feedback through identification of the prerequisite instructional design factors that are able to guarantee e-learning success. Now, problem of the statement. Literature has clearly documented that learner satisfaction is indeed crucial to the success of e-learning interventions. How? It fosters learning engagement, promotes learning persistence, and enhances users' continuous use intention with the e-learning. On the contrary, if learners are dissatisfied with the e-learning, there is a tendency for them to be demotivated while learning. Many of them are likely to enroll in future learning activities or will decide to drop out of the course. Now, in the context of Ugandan higher learning education, existing studies have tended to concentrate on only initial e-learning adoption. For example, usability and e-learning adoption, e-learning readiness, e-learning use, and e-learning adoption, among others that do exist. And none of these have actually fully characterized for stakeholders the vital instructional design attributes that are crucial to gauge learners' post-adoption behavior with e-learning use. Perhaps Chintu and Zoo tried to look at learner satisfaction in the blended learning context using learner characteristics, elements, tools, and interaction as predictors, but this study was limited to only one higher learning institution. Therefore, given the fact that the goal of any e-learning course is to enhance student learning, the current study on instruction design qualities that influence e-learning success in terms of satisfaction and continued use is indeed timely. To that end, the study had one sole purpose, that was determining the causal relationship between instructional design qualities in terms of content quality, interface design quality, and instructional strategies on learner satisfaction, and later establish the relationship between learner satisfaction and continuous use intention with e-learning courses. To buttress the study further, the researcher came up with a conceptual framework that was useful to understand the intricate relationships between the latent constructs, and this conceptual framework was actually based on several theoretical models and frameworks. So to go further, a few steps had to be undertaken to successfully achieve the study's purpose, and these were: first, descriptive analysis had to be carried out to have an overall view of the respondents regarding the variables involved, hence research question number 1. Secondly, there was a need to validate the items in the questionnaire and ensure that they actually reflect the constructs that they were measuring in terms of content, interface, and instructional strategies, resulting into research question number 2. 3, there was a need to establish the hypothesized model fit, so as to gauge the extent to which this model is able to explain data to the real population, resulting into research question number 3. Next, causal relationships had to be established between the instructional design qualities on learner satisfaction and then learner satisfaction with continuous use intention, resulting into research questions 4A to C as well as research question 5. And lastly, cross-validation was carried out to provide evidence that indeed the hypothesized model can be validated across samples. Take note that this was not invariance test, but cross-validation as recommended by here, resulting into research question number 6. To that end, this is a summary of the research questions as they were derived from the logical steps I've just explained and the accompanying hypothesis based on research questions 2 to 6. Now, in terms of methodology, the current study was actually based on the objectivist epistemological paradigm, which focuses on assessing social phenomena in terms of quantitative numbers to draw inferences. And to that end, quantitative cross-sectional survey design was the suitable design of choice and was backed up by a validated self-administered questionnaire that was used to collect quantitative data from the field. The data was drawn from a stratified sample of 900 Cisco e-learners out of the population of 5,239. After the quantitative data had been collected by the researcher, a series of activities had to be engaged, starting from data screening, and the sole purpose here was to ensure that the assumptions of multivariate analysis were met. Secondly, descriptive analysis was carried out, purposely to establish or gauge the perceptions of the learners regarding instructional design quality, learner satisfaction, and continuous use. The next step was to carry out exploratory factor analysis so as to gauge the underlying factor structure of the latent constructs. Then next was to carry out pooled CFA to establish the relationship between the observed variables and the latent constructs. Lastly, full structure equation modeling was deployed with three sole goals. One, determine the extent of the hypothesized model fit. Two, assess the causal relationships between the predictor variables and the outcomes. And three, carry out cross-validation of the hypothesized model across the samples, as will be elaborated later. Now, from the analysis, what did we find out? As for research question number 1, it was found out that actually learners were happy and expressed their agreement regarding the content quality, interface design pattern, and instructional strategies, as well as their level of satisfaction and intentions to continue using the e-learning courses. As for research question number 2, which was based on the measurement model, it was found out that the measurement model had indeed achieved the required fit as seen in the normed chi-square and the fit indices of CFR, TLI, and Ramsey. Secondly, the correlations between the latent constructs were also adequate, as seen that all of them were actually above 0.2. The lowest actually here was 0.55 and the highest of 0.78 between content quality and instructional, interface design quality. Thirdly, it was found out that the factor loadings that are used as a measure of strength within the indicator items and the latent constructs were equally satisfactory, with all of them scoring above 0.55. Moving to research question 3 to 5, that constituted hypothesis 2 to 6, were based on the structure model, and it revealed that the structure model actually had achieved the required level of fitness to the data in the real population, as seen with the normed chi-square that was below 5, the CFI, TLI, and GFI, which were all well above 0.9 as recommended, and the Ramsey, which was below 0.8 and indeed below 0.045. The next step was to look at the causal relations between the predictor variables and the outcome variable of learning satisfaction. The standardized beta weights were positive and strong, ranging between 0.22 and 0.33. In addition, it was discovered, or it was revealed by the data analysis, that up to 62% of learner satisfaction could be accounted for by the 3 predictor variables, and this simply shows us how intertwined these 3 predictors are in helping to understand learner satisfaction. The next stage was to look at the relationship between learner satisfaction and the continuous use, whose standardized beta was at 0.7, accompanied with an R square of 49%, meaning that up to 49% of continuous intention of e-learning courses to be accounted for by the level of satisfaction with the course. As for research question number 6 and therefore hypothesis 7, the hypothesized model was not reliable across the 3 samples. How? It was found that for model number 2 and 3, with the samples of 405 and 400, their CFI and TLI was not satisfactory, and perhaps this was because the researcher did not specify these models so as to identify which of the items were not good enough to help achieve model fit. Now, this was in comparison to the model 1, which had the full sample that achieved adequate fit in terms of the CFI, TLI, as well as the Ramsey. In terms of contributions, the current study has been able to formulate 4 key contributions, and these were, in terms of methodology, the current study was able to develop and validate a 40-item scale, which is useful for assessing e-learning course quality, learner satisfaction, and continuous use. Secondly, in the context of Ugandan higher learning education, this study is the first of its kind to have employed the structural equation modeling approach to assess instructional design quality, learner satisfaction, and continuous use. Equally, this current study has left behind a trail for researchers to follow in the future, and this particularly is concerning the way the study was able to arrive at the findings through a comprehensive and thorough development of the questionnaire, since no validated questionnaire actually was in place to assess the items and the constructs involved. The results of cross-validation have been able to clarify regarding the recommendations for sample size requirements as recommended by various authors like Hare and Klein. In terms of theory, the current study was able to develop and validate an instructional design quality for e-learning success model, which I feel is very useful in extending the understanding of existing models and frameworks like that of Badru Khan, that of the e-learning information system success to evaluate e-learning interventions. This study also helps to bring to light the perspective of instructional design that has lately received less attention in the context of Ugandan higher learning education. 3. This study is the first of its kind to have evaluated physical e-learning courses in Uganda in relation to learner satisfaction and continued use intention. In terms of practice of e-learning, the study has been able to put in place guidelines that are useful for e-learning stakeholders like instructional designers, subject matter experts, programmers, and interface developers to recognize the role that instructional design principles can play in implementing successful e-learning interventions. As for Islamization of knowledge, 2 issues have been noted. 1, the current study was able to develop instructional design guidelines that are crucial for designing and developing learning content that can foster Muslim lifelong learning. And 2, this study was the first of its kind to integrate Al-Zanuji's pedagogical thought into a theoretical framework to understand e-learning in the context of Ugandan higher learning education. So to that end, a few recommendations are forwarded by the study. First, for e-learning practice, the current study recommends that e-learning courses should always be designed, guided by established principles of instructional design, so that usability, satisfaction, and continuous use is fostered, as these are critical to the success of open and distance learning. In terms of future research, a few recommendations are equally laid out. 1, the study suggests that future research be carried out on learner satisfaction as it relates to interactivity and personalization in e-learning. 2, that a qualitative study be carried out in the future involving both learners and instructors regarding the instructional design qualities of e-learning courses, so as to bring a deeper insight into the variables studied. Next is that a study on the differences in learner satisfaction and continued use with e-learning be carried out across the demographic variables like gender, age group, levels of ICT expertise, and ICT self-efficacy. Next, the study further suggests that future research could be carried out on how instructional design qualities related to perceived learning, perceived student learning and learning transfer. Lastly, a future study on the mediating role of satisfaction and on the mediating role of satisfaction with instructional design qualities and continuous use intention be carried out so as to triangulate the findings. Terima kasih.